Okay, well, I have Mark. It's at the top of the hour, so I think we're ready to go. Hey, everybody that's out there watching us live on Zoom. My name is Michelle Davis. I'm the training director here at Atlanta Communities. And one of the highlights of my job here at Atlanta Communities is doing Broker Up with Mark. I always learn something every single time I'm here with you, Mark, and I'm excited to get to do that again today. So for those of you that don't know Mark, maybe you're new to the company, Mark Hall, two things about him. One, he's the president of our company. And every morning at 8 o'clock on Saturday, you should be getting an email and also see something on Atlanta Communities Rocks from Mark called Wake Up to Broker Up with Mark. And I think I said it just about like you do.
I think you did.
So not that I've watched every single episode for what? Are we on about 2.5 years now?
Yeah, we're getting close to 2.5 years. And the interesting thing is that I had, there's something that I'm going to be revealing later, not during this broadcast, but soon. And I had the occasion to go back and watch them. And you know what? I actually had to say that even though I'm the star, which most people say, I don't ever watch what I do, some of that crap was really funny.
Oh,
I mean,
it was great.
really fun. And it was kind of impactful. And I did it. So it's a good time. It's kind of practical application of things for real estate that you probably need to know and that we're obviously not taught in real estate school.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I can remember when I got my real estate license, Mark, and it almost felt like, what is it, Field of Dreams?
Yes.
If you build it,
yeah,
they will come.
Right.
It's not the way it is in real estate. So, I appreciate your candid remarks during Broker Up and every time I get to sit down with you. And I think today is going to be no different.
Well, that's a great way for me to segue into saying this. I can tell you that the biggest issue we face in real estate all the time is how it relates to being simple. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to make it complex, and really you just have to keep it simple. There's a buyer who wants to buy generally, and a seller who wants to sell generally, and you got to marry those two together, and then you got to see it from the beginning, the courtship phase, all the way through the altar. And if you're lucky, you don't get to go on the honeymoon because it ends at the altar. So that's kind of what my focus is on, the practical applications of what happens in real estate.
Well, and you've always been there for me, whether you knew it or not. I've been with the company, it's going to be 11 years. Next month is my anniversary date. And I've grown up. Well, I was in the business at another brokerage before, but I kind of consider myself that I grew up in my real estate career listening to your sage advice. And it's morphed into what we're doing today. And I'm so thankful for that. So I do want to go ahead and clear out the air on the first thing we need to talk about, because one of the things that we need to address here at Atlanta Communities, and this is not really us as far as Atlanta Communities per se, but it's a Georgia Real Estate Commission thing.
Yeah,
and that's our advertising, right?
The Georgia Real Estate Commission, it's important that we as practitioners and licensees in Georgia, that we pay attention to the Georgia Real Estate Commission. And one of the things the Georgia Real Estate Commission is committed to is the advertising rules, because they see the infractions everywhere. And there is not a Georgia Real Estate Commission police force per se. How they get notified of violations of advertising is by your competitors, because they are always looking potentially to rat you out and to have you tap dance in front of the Real Estate Commission. So that's where it becomes really important to know what you need to know. And the main thing you need to know right off the bat is that all advertising has to be approved by the brokerage. Now, here at Atlanta Communities, we like to give you a lot of leeway. And that's why we have templated things through
the marketing suite.
And so that you are in compliance right off the bat. All you have to do is go and put the information in, and off you go. It's Greg compliant.
Do you mind if I give another shameless plug?
Go right ahead.
So we also have KV Core.
Right.
And if you're advertising any type of property, which does have to make sure that you give credit back to the brokerage, if you're using KV Core to boost a property, everything's done for you as far as it's being GRET compliant. So keep that in mind as well.
And most websites also do the
Yeah.
same thing. So it makes a big difference as it relates to when you advertise through those type of mediums, you are generally in compliance because it makes the proper references to the brokerage, et cetera.
I love it. So I think we've addressed what we need to address as far as the Georgia Real Estate Commission is concerned. Would you think?
Well, I'm going to go a little deeper.
Can I do one thing
You
just
may
super
do
quick
whatever.
though before
Sure.
you do that? All right. Now we're on our webinar platform today, Mark, which allows us to take your questions. And if you pose a question to Mark while we're here, you can put that in the Q&A. So if you put that question in the Q&A, we're going to see it and we are going to address as many, if not all, questions that we get throughout this broadcast. So just put those into the Q&A. Guys, hear me, Q&A, not the chat. I know this is a little bit different because we're using a webinar platform instead of our typical Zoom platform, but we will see your questions and I will make sure that we get those fielded over to Mark throughout this broadcast. So Mark, take it away.
Okay.
I know you're full of good stuff today.
All right. So these are the advertising rules for real estate from the Georgia Real Estate Commission. And it says all advertising should not be misleading, should not discriminate, should be in the name of the broker, and is reviewed and approved by the broker. All advertising, not misleading, no discrimination, is in the name of the broker, is reviewed and approved by the broker.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Don't we have an email address for that?
We do, advertising@atlantacommunities.net. And that goes to the appropriate people who can approve your advertising. It's really that simple.
Who knew?
I know. Advertising a specific property must have the owner's permission. So in addition to not misleading, not discriminating, name of broker, and approved by the broker, it must have the owner's permission, broker's name equal or greater size and frequency or prominence as the agent, broker's telephone number equal or greater size, frequency, or prominence as the agent. So that's advertising a specific property. So now that's 7 things: not misleading, not discriminatory, name of broker, approved by the broker, reviewed by the broker, owner's permission, broker's name equal or greater size, frequency, or prominence than agents, broker's telephone number equal or greater size, frequency, or prominence than agents.
Okay. So Mark, let me kind of let's see if I can break this down to make sure we all understand.
Okay.
Number one, I had to purchase signs maybe 6 months, 8 months ago.
Mhm.
I went through Farmer Signs, which is our preferred distributor, and I just filled out the form online. They said, I need this, I need this, I need this, and I filled it out, but I followed a template that was given to us by Farmer Signs, which to my understanding was automatically approved by Atlanta Communities.
That's correct. It's GRET compliant.
It's GRET compliant. If I go outside, so I want something a little different, that's where we want to get that proof from whoever's producing our signs and send it to that address at advertising.
That's correct.
Okay.
Advertising at atlantacommunities.net. And there are times when I can tell you that when you look at the font, that they will absolutely, which I'm sure is true, it will say it's exactly the same size, but visually it doesn't look to be the same size. And that's when you got to pay particular attention to it, because once again, the consumer and the general public out in the real estate world don't know the difference, but your competitors do. And in some cases, they're the ones that are going to rat you out. So you got to make sure you're doing it right.
It's a good point. And, I think that I'm bringing up my Marcall. I'm going to channel my inner Marcall for a minute. But one of the things you always talk about in Broker Up is having that good relationship with other agents, because if you're out there, it's not always the case, I know, but if you're doing the right thing and you're working with agents and you're putting your best foot forward, and we talk about not posting things negative on social media and just being a general, in general, a good person, it's probably not going to happen to you very often.
I wouldn't think so.
But it's that 1 minute that
if it's contentious,
yeah,
if you give them an opportunity to where it can be contentious, etc., then that's where it's going to be a little different than it would be
exactly
any other time.
And
so you got to be a good citizen,
right?
A good real estate citizen.
And we like to use our acronyms, and it's always a good idea I'm going to say CYB since we're on Cover Your Behind.
There you go.
Is that good?
That's good.
And that's what advertising does for you, is it covers your behind by going brokering up.
We have a question.
We do. Is this just about advertising properties, or does it also apply to advertising yourself as an agent? That's a very good question, Mark.
Well, the bottom line is, when you're advertising yourself as an agent, you can have just your name and your phone number. Still, I think it's best to identify your brokerage. If you're using some type of trade name or name, identify yourself, the trade name, your phone number, and the brokerage. Don't be ashamed. I've been here a long time. I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed to say Atlanta Communities and that I'm part of Atlanta Communities. Don't be ashamed.
Me either.
But it really does make it life easier, because what you want to do is be above reproach. So you want to be above reproach. And the best way to do that is to maybe go a little bit above and beyond instead of just doing the bare minimum.
I 100% agree with you on that. And I do want to mention, if you use the marketing suite, so when you can get to the marketing suite via atcmonline.com, you can get to it from acmarketingsuite.com, and you can also get to it on one login. There are some promotional pieces built in to the marketing suite that are set for you. They're videos, different types of, I just want, here's who I am, pieces that do mention the brokerage, but also are very much compliant. And that you can put together lickety split just like that.
So we
use what we've got.
I know we spend a lot of time and energy and effort to provide you exactly what you need, and the utilization is good, but can always be better. So if you've never been there and never looked at any of that information, you need to go check it out, because you would be surprised. And once again, the whole idea is not only is it available to you and that it's good looking stuff and stuff that you'll be proud of to use in your marketing endeavors, it's easy to use.
It is easy simple. To use.
You plug a few things in and off you go. So it really makes a big difference.
It really does.
All right. So I got to go back to the advertising rules for real estate. So all advertising, not misleading, does not discriminate, name of the broker, reviewed and approved by a broker, advertising a specific property, not misleading, does not discriminate, in the name of the broker, reviewed and approved by a broker, must have the owner's permission, broker's name equal or greater size, frequency, or prominence than agents, broker's telephone number equal or greater size, frequency, or prominence than agents. And then if you're advertising licensee-owned property, so if you own the property yourself, you got to do not misleading, not discriminatory, name of the broker, reviewed and approved by the broker, must have owner's permission, broker's name equal or greater size, frequency, or prominence, broker's telephone number equal, greater size, frequency, or prominence, written notification to broker if it's your own property, broker's written consent and approval, and including the licensee disclosure that you are a licensee in the state of Georgia.
That's a lot of information.
Yeah, but it's really not as complicated as that would make it seem. And the Georgia Real Estate Commission piece, which of course you can't see really, maybe you can see it, probably not see it.
A little bit.
But anyway, it's tiered down to where it goes to the most specific area, which is where these four come into play, the next ones, and then the next ones. So it really is kind of simple.
And I'm going to just go out on a limb here and say that you pulled that directly off the Georgia Real Estate Commission's website.
I did.
So
couldn't tell you when,
but it's readily available information.
This information currently doesn't change very often, and the reason for that is this is dated 9/12 of 2008, which is now a lifetime ago.
It really is.
It really is a lifetime ago. Yeah. So.
But the one thing I did hear from you, and I know we preach this all the time, but you're in a situation where you need to sell your property, or maybe you're buying a piece of property. The first thing I did the last time I bought a piece of property as an agent myself is I picked up the phone and I called my broker.
Right.
And I just said, here's what's going on. What do you want from me?
Right.
To make sure that I give them the head start to say, this is what's happening, and not in a moment when I've got myself in a bind.
Right.
Do it up front.
Right. Georgia Real Estate Commission requires you to notify your broker in writing, which can be as simple as an email that you're purchasing a property for your own use. It's really simple. And then you have to disclose in the purchase and sale agreement that you're licensee, blah, blah, blah. It once again is really simple, but the easiest way to perform any of that is to call your broker, and then you'll get the answers you need on the spot and know exactly what you need to do right when you need to do it.
100% agree. And Mark, I even and this is probably me with overkill, but the minute I started searching for properties, I let my broker know.
Yeah.
And that way she could say, yep, Michelle told me she was looking. So it was no surprise when we found the right property that we wanted to buy.
Right.
So, you don't always have to call your broker for every situation, but to me, sometimes more is less.
Makes a big difference.
It does make a big difference.
Easy,
Right.
easy. You're going to hear me say easy and simple a lot because I prefer easy and simple.
Awesome. Well, guys, if you want to put any questions that you've got in Q&A, not chat, but Q&A, go ahead and put those in there. But hopefully we've covered what we need to for the Georgia Real Estate Commission. Mark, we're in almost February of 2023. Can you believe it?
I cannot believe it.
So, give us a little bit about what you're hearing, about our current situation in the market, or just kind of how you think 2023 is going to play out this year.
Well, I think 2023, let's think about Atlanta in the macro. So if we think about the Atlanta metropolitan area, which is really kind of Northwest Georgia, all signs point to the fact that we will fare better than the rest of the country, as we typically do, because housing prices here, while expensive, are still better than they are in other parts of the country. Demand is good. We have a lot of people moving to the metro Atlanta area. And, it's going to be kind of like what you make it. There has long been a real estate saying that probably many of us ignored for a long time, which is you have to list to last. Mm-hmm. You have to think about what's the value in real estate, and that is the property itself. So the best thing you can do to position yourself to have great business is to get listings. Mm. I'm a buyer guy. I love buyers. I'd much rather work with buyers than I would with sellers. And the reason for that is that I think buyers spread the word about you and your services and your advocacy to so many more people than sellers do, because even if you get a seller a full price offer on day one, they're going to then think that they left money on the table oftentimes, and they don't spread it. And oftentimes they're moving to another part of the country, et cetera. So they're moving out of your sphere. And that's why I like buyers. But this is a time when you want to look for listings, and listings will sell and are currently selling if they're the best in their class, meaning that if whatever their competition is, if they are a better property than the rest of them out there, it'll sell. And that's where you have to know your competition. You have to go out to the competition and make sure that you're checking out the competition and making sure that the seller is well aware of what they're competing against. Because sellers oftentimes go off of hearsay and what they hear from their neighbors or they see on social media, and oftentimes that's not correct. And in the void of communication, they're going to let other people formulate their opinions instead of you as the professional. And you've got to step up to the plate and be the professional and provide that knowledge and information that you have through experience. We have a situation now where data is out there. It's called the democratization of data. I can't even say the word. And what that means is that data is available to everybody. You may have heard the term GTS, which is Google that. And You can get any information about anything that you want anytime you want it. But the one thing that that information doesn't give you is context. And context is everything. And we don't get enough context. Why? Because people are so rapidly going from one thing to another that they're not giving you context. And you got to have context. Just like we're trying to do here today in Broker Up is give you context. So we're taking what happens anywhere and then giving you context of how it works in the real world of real estate.
So, Mark, one thing that a video I recorded recently, and I was just kind of looking through my notes, is Robert Williamson, who's our vice president of the company, sat down with me and we cut a video on InfoSparks. And I think that that's really playing into what you're talking about is you need to know what's going on in the market that you sell in. You know, not everybody's going to sell in the same market in Atlanta. But let's just put out there, I'm in West Cobb. So a lot of my business is in West Cobb and Paulding. Right. So one of the things I've been trying to pay attention to is the stats that I can pull from our MLS and see the trends and what's going on. Because people, like you say, they hear what's going on, but they don't actually have the solid numbers to back it up. So that would be one thing I would say that we need to do is get involved with the products that you've got at your disposal. Right.
And if you take that information, so this is where it starts to get to context. If you take that information and you understand that information, then you can deliver it to the seller or to the buyer, whichever one you're working with, in its proper context. Because the information, like for instance, I'll give you a great example. If the numbers suck, I'm not going to give them the numbers. Duh. Because then they go, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to sell my house. They miss the whole point. The numbers are the numbers, but the context of the numbers are that in those numbers, if the numbers are trending down or anything, there are still houses that are selling. And why? Because as somebody wrote in, the list price is good and the property is in great shape and marketable and ready to go. And when you combine those things, the numbers tend to fade into the background. So you've got to ask the questions. And this is where I think as practitioners, we don't do a good enough job talking, conversing, having conversations with buyers or sellers, and then actually asking questions. Because when we ask questions, we get the answers. It doesn't change how we do things, but it changes the presentation. It makes a difference. And we have to make sure that we conceptually understand the big picture because context is king.
Well, and I think what I'm hearing from you too is, you know, I've been in the business long enough to have gone through 2008 and then we evolved. Is that a good word to use?
That's a good way to put it.
And so we evolved through that. Then we come up to pandemic days, and then I could literally step foot out my door and have a listing under contract. They literally fell in our laps. So we evolved to that. Now we're having to evolve to a little bit of a different market right now. Would you agree?
Yeah. And it begs the question, because we're back to context, it begs the question, where did all the buyers who didn't buy the properties because they couldn't buy the properties then, where did they go? Well, the overall answer is they retreated because interest rates went up. It is now time to rattle the bushes, etc., to find those buyers because they're still out there. And rates have started to inch down, although at any given time they may, it's like watching the scale. Stop watching the scale and do the things you need to do to be fitter, for instance. Same with this. Stop watching the rates. If you're conscious of the rates, the person you're working with, buyer or seller, is going to be conscious of the rates too. If you're dealing with a seller, you need to express to the seller that you may have to pay closing costs, etc., to sweeten the deal for a buyer. maybe not come off of price as much, but you're going to have some concessions that are beneficial to the buyer. And why does that work for a seller? Because it increases the seller's pool exponentially. And that's what you want to do if you're representing a seller. You want to attract more opportunities to sell the property to more people.
Right. And I do want to make sure we just a statement that came through on our Q&A, and that was to make sure that we're listing the house at a right price.
Right.
And that is very important because that's going to play into how long the house is on the market and how it's received, or even how many showings you get. So I agree with that particular comment. Thank you for putting that in there. You do want to price the house right. And the other thing I want to bring up, just playing into what you said, is when sellers are looking at, well, I could have gotten $25,000 more for my house. I'm just throwing out a random number, $25,000 more for my house 2 months ago than I can get now. Where my brain goes, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, is yes, you could have gotten $25,000 more for your house 2 months ago. But now the house that you may be buying is going to be $25,000 less than it was 2 months ago. So it's all going to kind of balance out because the market on both sides is always going to shift. Would you agree?
Yes, you have to have rapport with the person you're representing. You have to be able to have the ability to be able to have candid conversations with, because if I got that from a seller, the first thing I'd say, well, yeah, but you would have paid $25,000 more for the house you were going to, as you just said. You've got to be able to be, quite frankly, you got to be able to think on your feet, but you've got to continually ask questions because they hear things from non-real estate professionals and they internalize it. They hear it from their friends, maybe from their parents, from relatives, from
CNN.
coworkers, CNN. The bigger picture, the AJC. I can tell you what, most of the time because I read the Atlanta Journal-Constitution every day. Actually, I skip over a lot of articles, but nonetheless, I do look at it every day. And when they have real estate information, for the most part, it is from the Associated Press. It is from a national perspective, because if the news won't make you cry, they don't want to put it in there. They don't want to put happy news in there.
No rainbows and unicorns?
Right. That's not the way news works. So you have to have context, and you got to be able to make sure that you are providing that context to the people you're working with. I guess I can't say the word context. Let's see, we should have a drinking game while we're doing this. And we could, every time I say the word context, you got to take a drink. In this case, you can do coffee or water, whichever your preference is, not drinks, because it's too early to be in a drinking game for real. But context is everything. And you got to have rapport. You got to be willing to look at the stuff and then listen to carefully. So we're back to conversations. You got to listen carefully to the person you're working with and understand what their goals are, et cetera. And you got to downplay their negative impressions that they've gotten from everywhere else. When sellers say, I'm going to lose money, compared to what? Houses have run up in value so much, you're not making as much money had you sold it 9 months ago, but you didn't lose any money, because when you bought your house, renovated it, et cetera, you're still making whatever your equity is in the property. And the only way to realize that equity is to sell the property. My in-laws used to live in my neighborhood, and my father-in-law was famous for, whenever we got together, which was frequently, saying, well, what's my house worth? And during the downturn of 2008 to 12, he would say, well, I've lost money. And I said, really, Poppy, only if you sell it. Otherwise, you haven't. And that's an important part, again, of the process and the context of which the information comes. You don't lose money if you walk away. The only time you lose money in a real estate transaction is if you're the seller and you come to closing and you have to bring a cashier's check.
Right.
You have lost money. Otherwise, you may not have gained as much as you would have gained at some other point in time. But you've got to remember that for most of these people, they're selling the house for a particular reason, either because their family's expanding or contracting, and they need to live in a different place than where they live now, or they want to.
If that makes sense. Here's one thing I want to, you've mentioned the word context. Okay, so there's my drink. A couple of times, and I want to just talk about for a minute. And if anybody has any questions, comments on this, put it in the Q&A. Providing context on some of these things. This is where I think Atlanta Community shines. So we have classes at all 7 locations, and we have our preferred partners come in. We have our attorneys come in. I mean, we're here at the end of January. How many GAR contracts changes classes have we had?
Quite a few.
Okay, and I have still yet to sit in on one, so I've got to get that done. But we provide all this knowledge and all of these resources as a part of our calendar. So I just want to give a shameless plug out there that if you need help getting some of these resources, they're out there for you. And it's not just Mark talking, me talking, Sean and our marketing team talking. These are our attorney partners, our lenders who are providing these updates for us. So take advantage of all the opportunities that you've got out there that are free and just require you to sit down for a few minutes, whether it's in the office or at your computer at home, and learn. Always be the consummate professional. Pretend like you're going to a party. I mean, Mark, how many times have you gone to a party and somebody says to you, how's the market?
Too many times.
Too many times.
So I don't go to parties. No, I'm kidding.
But if you're planning on going to an event and you know that you might be, you ask those types of questions, now's the time to brush up on some stats.
And so let's take that to its extreme. So if I was at a party and somebody said, how's the market? I'd say, so why are you asking? Because I want to know. They may tell me, well, I've got my house on the market with so-and-so. And I'll be like, oh, that's great. I know that person. That's a great thing. You once again, we're about context. So I said it again, didn't I? Sorry. Sorry. But it is about context, because I'd say, so why do you ask? What are you in the market to sell or to buy? Because I really want to know what their particular personal situation is, so that I can give them the best answer possible based on what they're really asking. I know a lot of you don't, maybe have never heard me say this, but when I got out of the Marine Corps, I listened to Dr. Laura Schlesinger. I know you're thinking, ooh, you are weird. But
I used to listen to her.
I listened to Dr. Laura Schlesinger because I was a talk radio person. And one of the things that always struck me was she only had an X amount of time at any given time to try to get to what the caller's real question was and what the context of the real question was. And what I got from all that is that an invaluable skill, which was how to probe and how to get all the information before you just provide an answer, because many times you just blurt out the answer because you think you know it, or you've memorized these facts and figures, and you then regurgitate them, but you don't have the context. And that's why I keep bringing up that word context. I'm sorry, excuse me. But that's why I keep bringing it up, because you've got to understand why the question is being asked and how it relates to what the person really is after and what they want to know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got a couple things, one statement, and it looks like one question. And so let's start with the statement. If you paid $500,000 cash for a home and it sold for $400,000, even though you didn't have to bring a check to closing, you've lost money in that sale. Well,
yes,
it's true.
Yes.
It's true.
And that's one where, you know what, you need to tough it out. I can't imagine that a $500,000 home is so crappy that you can't just live there for a little while longer. until it bounces back, until it comes back. Are there situations where somebody has to do that because of whatever reason? Yes.
Well, but Mark, this goes back to me of knowing what your market is and knowing how to educate your clients. I did have a situation similar to this, and the situation was that they had to relocate. They were dear friends of mine, lived in my neighborhood, and they had to move to Houston for same company job transfer. And it was a relo, and I had to compete for said relo, which you know how it is, even though they wanted to list with me. But I said to them, negotiate up front in your reload package, because this was back in the 2008 market swing, negotiate in your reload package that they're going to cover your loss. So if there's a situation like that, this is where they're going to depend upon you to tell them what to do and negotiate those types of losses up front and help you cover those if you're lucky enough to have that situation. But I agree with what you're saying is, hopefully they break down their cost benefit analysis and what it's going to take for them to break even, and know that they need to stay in the home for a certain amount of time to cover, whatever it is. So I get what you're saying though. Next one.
And because I think it's important to say this, we're back to context.
There you go.
Every situation is different. So what I'm talking about is big picture. It's not specific to whatever your situation is or whatever your client's situation is. It's conceptual.
But be the one who can go and get the information, even if you don't have it. You've got to be able to go out there and get the information to guide them.
Yeah, collectively, I'm smarter with the people around me.
So I'm going to have to say it. Maybe we need to make this a new drinking game.
Okay.
Broker up.
Well, there you go. All right.
Right.
Talk to your broker. Right. Don't be afraid to call and ask questions and to get specific answers to your property. I don't know how many of you out there in broker up land have called your broker, but typically when you call your broker asks you a series of questions. And I know it probably feels like an interrogation, but it's because you call with something specific and we need to know the
X, Y, and Z.
The context. We need to know the context.
Do I need to go get you another bottle of water?
We may, but
or schedule a break.
No, hopefully I'll be okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, and let me just put this out there in the universe. When we say contact our broker, do we mean by Atlanta Communities Rocks on Facebook?
We do not mean by Atlanta Communities Rocks on Facebook.
Okay. I was wondering.
That's not a broker contact. Occasionally you'll see me step into that fray, but that's not contacting your broker. And things, I can tell you, if you contact your broker in the morning, so before noon, there's never a line, never anybody waiting ahead of you. Typically, you get right in to get your question answered. If you contact them, the closer it gets to 5 o'clock, the more likely the broker is busy and occupied with other people. That's just the way it works. There's also brokers. I know this sounds weird, but brokers are people too. And after 5, they kind of like have personal lives, etc. But that doesn't mean they won't be available to you, but try to get your questions answered before the end of the day during business hours. It really makes a big difference.
Stop the presses.
Yeah.
Brokers are human?
Yeah, apparently.
Wait, and they have spouses?
Oh my gosh.
And children?
Well, we tried to hire ones that didn't, but it didn't work. We tried to limit them and say, okay, this is what you need, and it doesn't work.
That is funny.
No, we want them to have a life outside of real estate, and I know you do as well, and all. So just try to be conscious of that. But I want you to contact your broker if you need assistance. We're the ones that are responsible for your actions out in the marketplace, and therefore we need to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So we're the ones that can provide you with the help you need, that we will stand behind when and if things go worse. So,
okay. So what I took from that, putting this into context. Yeah, go ahead for me, because I don't have any water. Let's contact the broker before things get bad, So if your spidey senses are tingling even just a little bit, that things are going to be a little off, go ahead and make the phone call. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So when we get to a situation where, for instance, we are at the end of buyer's due diligence period and you've submitted an amendment to address concerns to the seller and there has been crickets and it is the last day and it's now 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening and all, you know what? The buyer needs to be prepared to either go forward with the property or to terminate if the seller is not answering the amendment to address concerns. That's not a, and no offense to anybody in broker upland, but it didn't start right then at 8 p.m. It started at the morning of the last day.
Right.
So the point is that you have to know and be ready to know, but more importantly, the people you're representing have to know what to do and how to do what they need to do. And you may need to get that information of it in advance of it actually happening.
Agree.
That question.
Yep. So our next question is, in today's market, when should you suggest to the seller to reduce the price?
It depends on the seller's situation. Context. If the seller has the luxury of time and you believe that the property is priced right and the seller does as well, and the market seems to be accepting that price, although there are no offers, then you would probably want to hold tight. If you have had no showings and the feedback has been that it's overpriced, then at that point, you would want to have the discussion with the seller. I used to tell sellers all the time when they would say, how much is my property worth? I'd say $1 million. And they'd go, no, it's not. And I go, well, then it's really worth what somebody will pay for it if they buy it. The point is that I've set up the expectation that it's only worth what a buyer is willing to spend to buy it. And that is a number that we don't know. We can do our best educated guess based on the information we have at hand and the data we can look at comparing this property to any other property. But that's the truth of the matter is it's only worth a buyer is willing to pay. And that's why I said earlier that you want to, if you're representing a seller, that property needs to be the best in its class, in its price range, in its area, so that the buyer will see it, because the buyer is not necessarily comparing that property to what has already sold as we do to determine list price. They are comparing it to every other property of its size, type, location, etc., that's on the market. It's a different way of looking at it. It's a different, you probably never heard that, but that's what you've got to figure out is what will it take for a buyer to make an offer. Your job as a listing agent is not necessarily to sell the house. What did you just say? Context. Sorry, context. Your job is to get offers for the seller to consider. Notice that's a little different than selling the house. You need to be getting offers. If you're getting offers, you're doing your job. And the reason for that is the seller has the power through their signature to sell the property. You've got to get them offers for them to consider, because the market may tell the seller what the property's worth, and it may not be what the seller wants. And that's when you got to have the conversation with the seller that, hey, you're still, your equity is big. You don't want to be in a situation where you didn't sell it because you didn't think it was enough, only to then chase the market because now it's been on the market a while and you're selling it for $5,000 less or $10,000 less because now you're desperate to find a buyer. So,
well, and just out of curiosity, besides running numbers and getting real honest with a seller on what their property is worth, you had mentioned in our conversations here about making sure you put the house in the best light, I guess, and that goes back to that C word, but I won't make you have any more water for right now. But now's probably the time that not only do we, because the prices are changing, interest rates are changing, and we need to make sure that we're, educating everybody, but we also need to make sure that the pictures are right, that our marketing is right. And I think that that's something here at Atlanta Communities that we really excel at, is providing you those resources to be able to do just those things. Would you not agree?
I agree with that. And if we go back to talking about the property, I can tell you that there are things that many of you consider, and I am so appreciative because I see your listing photos and I know that you have paid particular attention to detail of those properties, because in general, I would say that that is the case. And when you look at that, and it's evident that you tell sellers that, but I'm going to drive the point home now, which is start at the curb and work towards the house. Start at the front of the house, particularly the sidewalk, all the flat work as it's known in the industry, which is sidewalks, curbing, driveway, walkways, etc. When you have those pressure washed, when the seller gets them clean and sparkling, it will change the way the light reflects to the front of the house and often make people think that it's been painted. And it hasn't been painted. It's just now, if you think about how much driveway surface and flat work surfaces are in front of many houses, it brightens up because now the sun reflects off the concrete and brightens the house. At the front door, agents are struggling with the lockbox and getting the key box to drop, and the buyer is standing there looking around like this and sees the bird nest up there and the cobwebs, and worse, the bird duke from where they hang out in the nest, and they think that the property is neglected and there's spider webs and the windows are dirty. Pay attention to all that. You can walk into a house. I guarantee you I could get you to see the light. If you walk into a house where the windows have been cleaned inside and out, you will unknowingly rate that house higher because it had a certain sparkle that the other properties didn't. And when you take all of this in combination with each other, it makes a big difference. I'm not talking about spending or repainting or doing anything. Cleanliness is next to godliness. You can have a slob that will buy a house that's clean because they can make it their own, but you're never going to have a clean, neat Nick buy a slob house because they think they can't see themselves living there. Basic, yeah, it's basic. But these are the conversations. And guess what? You cannot have these conversations with the person doing this.
You can't?
You can't. You can't tell them all this.
You
got to get right with them, and you got to do it right face to face.
Okay. So get your water bottle.
Okay. Context.
Sorry, people. Putting this into context. And I think that this is exactly where you're going with that. Since you brought up that inferior device that you have, and I don't have mine with me right near. He has an Android,
the world's best.
Okay, so my iPhone, I'm going to agree with Mark on this point, and I think we all can agree if we've been in the business, you get a text from somebody and you're like, context, that you know what for saying that, but they're, or even dictating it on their phone and it doesn't come off like they intended it to. My knee-jerk reaction is to get mad about it first, but then I'm like, pick up the phone and say, got your text. Why don't we have a conversation and talk through this? Because then you realize what they meant to say was something completely different than how it came off in text, which drives me nuts with some agents. And sometimes I can be guilty of this too. But we all do so much better if we just pick up the doggone phone and have a face-to-face, or not a face-to-face, but just
don't be afraid
to
have
ear.
Conversations with people. Don't be afraid to be on the phone with people. If you are adverse to that, you need to have somebody that will make those calls for you and have those conversations with. And I know immediately you're going to say, well, I try to call those people and they never will answer the phone. I know that. And that is one of the inherent problems we have in the real estate industry right now, because we don't have enough conversations. Everything is too remote. People have hidden behind the technology that is designed to improve our lives. And instead, we've lost this. And I can tell you that from my point of view, which will remain this way forever, if we're not willing to pick up the phone and have conversations either face to face or over the phone, at some point we run the risk of technology replacing us, because the technologists out there believe they can do it without us because they don't like conversations. They don't like them. And if we fall prey and don't represent the people that we work with by having conversations with them, we could face extinction. How many dinosaurs do you see out there today? Yeah, that's what I thought. None. And they're even going to get rid of fossil fuels, which is the dinosaur. That's who created all that. Anyway.
You digress.
I digress. Yes.
So, Mark, we have kids that are roughly the same age. And conversation doesn't have to apply just necessarily to real estate. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's every aspect of our life.
Because I've had that conversation even with my boys to say, it's grandma's birthday. You need to call her and wish her a happy birthday. I'm just giving you a reminder. What did they do?
Text her.
They text her. And I said, did you call grandma? Yeah. Well, what'd she say? Well, she texted back. And I said, wait a minute. I said, call. I didn't say text. I said, call. That means you put the thing to your ear. So you're right. I think there's a chance we can go extinct if we don't do that.
I don't know what the answer is. And I for sure in real estate don't know the answer as it relates to how we're going to get a whole generation of real estate professionals that have been, I don't know when the starting point or the ending point was or any of that. But I don't know how we're going to get people back to where you can have conversations, because you can solve problems and prevent problems and move things forward much easier if you have conversations. As president of the company, I have to say that I prefer being out in front. I am concerned about leaders in our industry and, quite frankly, anywhere that are unwilling to be in leadership positions, who won't be out in front and talk to people. It's why I do Broker Up, because I believe, whether I have an audience for it or not sure, because I communicate with a lot of you each Saturday and Sunday and over the weekend, but there's a lot of you I don't talk to. But if you ever paying attention and you notice that if you post on Facebook, on the Broker Ups and all, I pretty much, unless I miss one or two, I answer everybody. And if you send me an email, I answer your email. And that is very purposeful, driven by me. And the reason for that is I can expand on points I make, but more importantly, I make the personal connection with each one of you that cares enough to reach out to me. It's invaluable. It is what we need to do as real estate professionals. And I am trying, and I think it's working, I hope, to set the tone for all of you to know that that's what the personal interaction looks like, and that's why it's important. Let's call, I don't know, any other real estate company in Metro Atlanta to find out if their president of their company or whatever talks to their people.
Mark, I want to bring up, do you mind if I say something that you shared in a meeting?
Depends on what it is. Yeah.
I think it's a good thing. How about that? Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that came out of a conversation that we were all having, and it had to do with new recruits. And you mentioned that, well, first of all, I have to, before I even get into that, one of the things that our new agents, who hopefully we have a bunch of them on this Broker Up session, one of the things that they're loving is you popping on to agent orientation and just giving a positive word. So, you live what you preach, I guess is the best way to say it. The other thing that I'm really excited about that you're doing is making that text or that phone call to the agents that are just coming on board and just saying, hey, just wanted to welcome you. And if you need me, I'm here.
It
And guys, when he says that his phone is available and he's going to pick it up, and if he doesn't pick it up, he's going to call you back, he does.
Yeah. It's this is a people-driven business. Where we connect is through the homes we sell or the homes we help people buy or sell. That's the connection point. But it's all about people. And if you will keep the people element as the most important part of the equation is the people. So that's not just prospects, customers, clients, buyers, sellers. It's also co-ops, it's lenders, it's this whole group. When I see a person in front of me, I also see, maybe it's because I have poor eyesight, but I also see these people that are like holograms all around them, because when I connect with one person, not only have I connected with that person, I've connected to other people that person then connects with. And it's invaluable. If you want more referrals, if you want more business, etc., connect with more people and do it genuinely. Don't force it, don't contrive it or anything. Real estate, which back to being simple and easy, it's not easy all the time, but it can be simple. Those two are not the same things. But when you have fun doing it, calling people, you call your friends. And if you're lucky, at some point in the conversation, it goes around to real estate and you can talk about a little bit about what you do, but don't force it. Don't make it contrived. People know what you do, and you should conduct yourself as if they are your next prospect, client, customer, or client. I mean, it's all about connecting with people, and you've got to be genuine and sincere, and you got to be yourself. You can't, for me, you can't script the stuff. None of, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but when I do broker up, if I may have some notes, but it is all me talking extemporaneously, just like I'm doing right now. And the reason for that is purposeful, because it's about conversations. I can't, maybe I'm making it right now, but it's true. It's the way I feel about things. And I'm happy to convey that. And you need to get to a point in your business where you are comfortable enough with the person you're working with to be able to tell them no.
Well, and Mark, one of the things I admire about you and always have admired about you is, and I think you'll take this as a compliment, so I hope you do. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
I always know where you stand.
Yes.
And I appreciate that about you. And I think that that's really what you're getting to is, I've heard you say it, is I have to be genuine and true to me, true to yourself and how it is you're offering your business. And shameless plug here for just a second, and I'm sure you won't mind. We do have technology that will help you do what Mark's talking about. It does automate some things, and Testimonial Tree is one of those products where you can get those testimonials, and also our KV Core will automate some of those things. But one of the things I always preach is that you can't just take stuff out of the can and put it out there to the world, because it's going to seem contrived. So I always say, when I'm doing some stuff like that, I've got to put my sweet tea on it. I've got to put my spin on it, and it's got to have a little sugar and spice or a little sweet tea to it. And so I think we're
talking about the same thing, right?
You've got to be genuine.
Yeah, technology should enhance everything you do, and it should be. You should be the director of everything that happens. You should do that. And when you do that, when you use it as the tool that it is, whatever the technology is, whatever it is you're seeking to do, it makes a big difference. Because I can tell you, just from my years of being on the planet and being a homeowner, I don't get much of them anymore, which is kind of interesting. But in the old days, I used to get magnet calendars and all these things. And when I'd be showing property, I love to go into the kitchen. And as I'm talking to the prospective buyers, as we're looking at the kitchen, etc., I am literally eyeballing the refrigerator. And why? because I always wanted to see if there was a disconnect between the magnets on the refrigerator for the real estate professionals versus the name on the sign. And the interesting thing is that almost all the time, the names on the magnets on the refrigerator didn't match the name on the sign. An interesting little known thing about Atlanta real estate. Why was that? Because the person whose name on the sign, their children went to school together, they knew each other from church, from work, whatever their connection was, that's why the person's name on the sign didn't have anything to do with the magnets. But the magnet people mailed to the neighborhood religiously, at least annually, to give them new calendars, but they never got the listings because they never called them. They never talked to them. They never said, well, gosh, I've been sending you magnets for years. Are they on your refrigerator? Can I come in and look? They never did that. So back to your point about we have the best in class technology. We try to make everything easy because if it's automated, it will probably get done. If it's complicated and difficult, it probably won't be done. So you have to go with the easy and uncomplicated because that way it's more likely to get done. Some of it is automated, and the reason for that is because it's easy. But the flip side of that is that by being automated and easy, then it gives you the opportunity to then give the personal touch. So for instance, I'm a permission-based person, which means for most of my life, I never would make a cold call or anything because I just don't pick up the phone and randomly call people any more than I randomly walk up to people at a party and introduce myself and start talking. It's just not me. It's not my personality. I have to know who I am and then operate within the parameters of who I am. With that being said, the way I would do it is permission. So now, if I want to reach out to somebody that I don't know and all, I oftentimes will send them a text and say, hi, this is Mark Hall, Atlanta Communities. I just wanted to know, may I call you? And then when they reply yes, then I call them. Why? Because I want the permission. I don't want to just randomly call because I know it's going to go to voicemail. That's my thing. That's what I do. And the reason I do it is because I know my personality and I know myself. So you've got to be looking in the mirror to try to figure out, how do you want your real estate business to function? What is going to make your mark, not Mark's mark, your mark on the real estate market and your real estate profession? And then be true to yourself and figure out how it best works for you.
Mark, I couldn't agree more, but I do want to point out one thing, and I think you'll completely agree with me. Doing nothing is just as much something as doing something. Does that make sense? So doing nothing is going to affect your business versus doing something is also going to affect your business. So I guess you have to choose what it is you're going to do.
Right, or not do.
Or not do. And if you're out there and you're using the technology for $50 a month that Atlanta Communities provides you and actually putting in a little work, because everything's going to create a little work. You don't.
Nothing happens in a vacuum.
Right. And nothing happens in a vacuum. But if you put in the time and you put in the effort to be true to yourself and how you're going to market your business and market yourself, good things are going to come. And the one example I always give, and I'm sure that you'll relate to this, the one example I always give is I was with a different brokerage at the time, but I followed their system. And I walked into the grocery store one day, and one person that I had on my list that I kept in contact with on a regular basis came up to me and he said, are you okay? And I said, well, yeah, I'm fine. And he said, well, I haven't gotten anything from you in a while. And I sat back and I thought about it in my car after I got my groceries, and I thought, somebody's paying attention to what I send them and missed it when I didn't send it. So guys, people, they may not contact you and they may not need your services right now, but they're paying attention to what it is you're sending and what it is you're doing.
Absolutely.
So put the effort in.
Right. And you've got to be willing to do what others want. So I grew up in Hayville, Georgia, down by the airport. which is the
Chick-fil-A
home of
Wharf Houses. Yeah.
Chick-fil-A.
Let's go what's most important.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A, Delta Airlines,
Ford.
now Ford plant, now Porsche. And I had the pleasure of growing up and actually seeing the founder of Chick-fil-A working at Chick-fil-A at Truett Cathy. And Truett Cathy once said that if you always do what others want, you'll always have a job. And I kind of think that's the way you need to approach your real estate business, where everything related to a transaction and to the acquisition of people to transact on is your job. This is really, as my friend Scott told me, this is really you affiliated with us. And the reason that that's important is because we value your affiliation with us, but everything is really comes back to you, how you conduct your business, how you go out to seek your business, how you do it. That's all an individual effort for you. So you have to think about it, how you're going to do that business. And we are here to provide you guidance, support, all these technology tools, etc. They're all available to you all the time, but you got to figure out
Context.
You got to figure out context. You got to figure out how to morph all that stuff in to being you. And when you do that, for instance, scripts wouldn't work for me. Why? Because the minute somebody didn't say what they were supposed to say, I wouldn't know what to do. So that's why I prefer a more conversational style. I'll ask you questions, you give me the answers. I used to joke that it was like loading, oh no, it's terrible. Don't shoot me. Like loading a gun. I would put their bullets in the gun and then shoot them back with them because I was listening to what they had to say. I was asking them questions and they were giving me the ammunition to help them reach their goal. I didn't invent the wheel. I just clarified it. I would, for instance, let's say they wanted a family room which overlooked the backyard and the kitchen that overlooked the family room. And the reason for that is that they like to have the children out in the backyard, be able to see them out there, be able to see who was in the family room, etc. And then when I walked into a house and they're walking around and I go, you know how you wanted the kitchen to open up to the family room and to be able to see the backyard? Wow, this does all that. And they would go, wow, you're right. Duh.
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 Now, but let me ask you this, because I'm not really a script person either, but it doesn't mean that you can't have some
questions,
even if you have to kind of rephrase them a little bit, but to have some kind of not a script, but just a list of things that you might keep queued up that you can tweak to whatever the situation is. Would you agree?
Yes. The best sales training I ever had was when I worked for new construction with Torrey Homes. They thought so much of, that's now D.R. Horton. They thought so much of the training that they said, you're going to take it. It's mandatory. We were independent contractors as well. And you're going to have to pay for it. And it was through a company called the Highland Bay Company. It was new construction training specifically, and they were out of Arizona, and they would come here locally, and everybody'd pay whatever the fee was to take the training. And in that training, they taught us EUASRM, EUASRM, and that's the 6 things on the sales cycle, which is experience, urgency, ability, status, requirements, and motivation. Experience, urgency, ability, status, requirements, and motivation. And it didn't matter which one you started with, but you needed to get answers to all 6 of those categories by asking a series of questions so that it was very conversational. All you had to do was remember this. So how soon are you going to buy? Well, what do you need to do and buy? That's ability. When are you going to buy? That's timetable. All of these things. Tell me about the best real estate professional you ever dealt with. Tell me about the worst real estate. Well, they didn't talk to me. All they did was text me. They never would pick up the phone when I called. They're going to tell you how they want to be interacted with if you ask the questions. EUASRM, experience, urgency, ability, status, requirements, and motivation. I had learned that before I came to what's now Atlanta Communities. So 2006. So it stuck with me all this time because it's a great way to interact with people, because I ask a series of questions for each one of those 6 areas, kind of randomly, but I'm getting all the information I need to be better able to help the people that I'm talking to.
I like it.
Yeah.
I wrote it down.
Yeah.
It's in
You-
a little bit of
right.
gibberish and
Right.
to the side with my left-handed,
It's
but
okay.
we got it. We got it down. So, and if you guys want some more information about that, I'm sure we can post it somewhere for you guys as well. But EUASRM.
Right.
Let me make sure I got it right. Experience, urgency, ability,
Status,
I can't read my own handwriting.
requirements.
And motivation. Okay, perfect. I'm going to write that neater after this.
It makes a big difference. If you know the answers to those questions, you're better able to serve them. For instance, requirements are, 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom, basement. Those are requirements. Those are hard facts. Those are things you need to know. You can then amplify that by, does it have a front porch? Does it have a deck? Do you want a front porch? Do you want a deck? Do you want a patio? Do you want a pool? All these different things, because what you're trying to do is get them to focus in on what the information that they need to disseminate. And it's going to tell you who they are. It's going to tell you that the engineer is probably going to be focused on the requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And the non-engineer part of that would be focused on the emotional part of why they're buying, what the motivation is. Well, we have to relocate here because my mother lives here and we need to be closer to her because she needs our help now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a whole different thing than just, hey, we're moving from California to Atlanta. This is a whole different thing.
It is.
Got to know.
Do you mind if I shift gears a little bit?
Go right ahead.
Okay. Are you scared?
I am scared. What's our timetable?
It's 12:11 right now,
Okay,
so
that's
we've got just a little less than 20 minutes. So you're okay. So first of all, everybody, thank you for attending. And if you do have questions or comments, we still would love to hear from you. And you can put that in the Q&A on the webinar, and we will make sure that we get that addressed. So Mark, I just want to bring up something that we've been talking about a little bit as leadership and moving forward. And I know we don't like to use the word shift. We don't like to use that word, but the market has changed, corrected. Would that be, or it's in a little bit of a correction? Would that be a word you would like to use, or tell me the word you would like to use?
I would probably use the word pause.
Okay, elaborate for me.
P-A-U-S-E, pause. Well, no, but I mean, not P-A-W-S, like animal pause.
Not pause.
Right. And the reason for that is, I think that there is, I believe there's a retreating buyer demand, because we have a pin-up buyer demand. We have all these buyers, yet again, that I mentioned earlier, that were unable to buy property before because they kept getting beat out. So they signed another lease, they stayed wherever they were, and at some point they are going to come back out into the market. And we need to be ready to service those buyers, which means that we need to have a good, trusted mortgage lender. Notice I never said anything about, no offense to anybody out there, and especially if you're when you're watching this and you happen to be a online mortgage lender.
Oh,
you need somebody that's local, that understands the local market. Atlanta real estate market and Atlanta's real estate mortgages are different. Our pricing is different. Our rates are different than other parts of the country. And you need somebody local. And for that matter, you need to support our partners. And this is off the cuff. And the reason you need to support our partners is because they support the brokerage. Mm-hmm. If I need something done mortgage-wise for any of you, I'm going to call our preferred lenders. And the reason for that is they're going to help, because their relationship is important to us as it is to them, and they're going to help. And that's the same with our attorney partners. Mm-hmm. This is a shameless plug for those people, but they really do provide value that you may or may not understand. They support us and our programs, etc. And so they're integral to what we do. So get some trusted partners as part of your business. Formulate relationships with the lenders. Formulate relationships with the closing attorneys. If you call your closing attorney that you have a relationship with, they should be wanting to take your call. That's how close your relationship should be at some point. Same with your lender. Okay.
Mark, have I ever told you my story about our preferred lenders?
I don't know. Have you?
I'll put it in context for you.
There you go. Context.
I used to be in a networking group with one of our preferred lenders. And this was the way I described it. So if you want to use this, I said, the reason I use our preferred lender is because I know, because he has an office in our office, that if something goes wrong and I need help, I can go, I have a Nectarine.
Right.
I've got a Nectarine. Now what, some guy that was not as versed in Southernese as you and I are, thought I said nectarine, and he brought me a nectarine to the next networking meeting.
Wrong context.
Wrong context. Okay. But that's another reason for using our lenders, is because you know you're going to walk in the door and you're going to be able to talk to them face to face versus picking up your phone and dialing a 1-800 number.
So to pivot back to where your question went originally, I would say that the market is in a pause state. And the reason for that is because we have watched interest rates climb, and now that they're starting to level off and potentially coming back down some, we're going to see people return to the market. Mm-hmm. And we need to be ready for when that happens. And the only way to be ready is to prep yourself now. Do you think the baseball players for the Atlanta Braves are sitting there not ready to go play baseball? And the answer is they're ready to go play baseball because they know the season's coming back around. Well, that's the same position that all of us need to be in. You need to constantly be evolving and improving your skill set. So when the buyers come back to the market, you'll be ready to go. Spring's eternal. When spring happens and the weather changes and it's sunny and the days are longer and the flowers are in bloom and everything turns green, people will be ready to go. Mm-hmm. Gas prices are stable. I've long said that gas prices help drive real estate in Metro Atlanta. And the reason for that is what other thing, apparently eggs are expensive. I don't know. I don't go to the grocery store. I just eat eggs. I don't price them. But what if every time you drove down the street, you saw the price of eggs? The point is that the gas prices are the only thing that you see every time you drive up and down the road. And if they tick up, you immediately start wondering why they're ticking up. And if they come down, you're grateful. So as that drives part of what we do in real estate, because people have more money to spend and they're more optimistic about what's going on.
I like it.
Yeah, it's true.
Although egg prices are high. I'm just going to put that out there in the universe. It's a little ridiculous. The memes are aplenty on
they're pretty funny. I bought the house and got a dozen eggs. Right.
Exactly.
Sellers are getting egg crates and packing eggs and giving them away to buyers so that they have egg sandwiches.
So I do want to just kind of hammer home one point that you made. And we have, I think Atlanta Communities may have two camps in it, in the sense that we've got some agents who, in the sense of how long I've been in the business and how long you have been in the business, they've maybe been in the business, say 2 to 5 years. And what we may have gone through in, when mortgage companies were shutting their doors and all of that is a lot different than, the boom that we experienced during the COVID times and, being out there and waiting to get into properties with 30 of our closest friends, that type of thing. Listings were falling in our laps and you put it on the market and the next day it sells. I think the one thing I'm hearing from you, and I just want to make sure that we're driving home, is Atlanta Communities is driven and committed to making sure that we provide you the tools to succeed in any market. And if you are seasoned in the business, your tools may be dull right now. So classes, getting into our different classes around the offices, It doesn't matter if you're a member of Woodstock or East Cobb. Go to a class in Brookhaven. Go to a class in Alpharetta, and
gas
sharpen
was
your
relatively
tools.
cheap, even though it went up like 30 cents overnight when the gas tax came back. But
sharpen
still,
your tools, right?
Right.
And if you have been in the business, say all you know is what's happened in the past 2 to 3 years, there are tools you need to put in your toolbox.
Absolutely.
And we've got classes for that. So I'm just going to put that shameless plug out there for what we do here, atcmonline.com. We have a calendar full of classes. And like I said, it doesn't matter what office you're affiliated, we're one company. So take advantage of what's on the calendar. Just register and let them know you're coming.
Right. And we'll do everything we can to help you get to wherever it is you want to go. But the bottom line is it's going to take you to implement anything that we give you. And we're committed to giving you stuff. You got to be committed to implementing. When my oldest son, who's a fifth-year senior in college, when he was a lacrosse player in high school, I would always say, I'm committed to you as you are to lacrosse. If you're committed, I'm committed. If your commitment wanes, I don't know that I can help you. So the point of that is that you have to make decisions. We are here to help. We have buildings, offices, maybe not buildings, across Metro Atlanta that are open and available for you to go and interact with the Atlanta community's broker team and staff team, with people that are committed to helping you. It's what we do. We're servants, and we're here to help you and answer your questions and give you the conceptual context answer that you need to make it work.
You were brought another water bottle by our production team.
This one's empty. That's a lot of context. And this
all right,
one's
2
full.
sips.
Right.
So
there you go. That happened live, everybody. Apparently my mouth shifted. What can I say?
we call a hole in your chin.
I'm telling you. Too bad you people at home can't really see that, because it was looking down on it. It was worse than it was probably on TV.
Okay, so we're going to put that as a part of the blooper reel.
Yeah. Whoops. I don't know why it jumped out of the bottle like that.
So Mark, what I heard is we have a policy here. You're cracking me up. But we have a policy here at Atlanta Communities is help us help you.
Yeah.
Because if you want help, we're going to help you. Whether that's from a broker perspective, from a training perspective, from our marketing team's perspective, we're all here, and all we want to do is provide the best service that we can. Because at the end of the day, if you succeed in your business, we succeed in our business.
Absolutely.
Right? And our business is
there's a whole real estate world out here in Metro Atlanta that really needs us to lead the way. And the best way we can do that, and the only way we can do that, is through all of you, because you're the important part of the equation. You're the people that are out there interacting with the real estate public, with prospects, customers and clients, buyers and sellers, and co-ops, because you got to be nice to those people too. You've never lost anything by being nice to everybody. So remember that as you interact with anybody in the real estate realm, and probably in your personal realm as well, which is just be nice and kind. It's okay to be nice and kind. I love being nice and kind, even though sometimes I want to do otherwise.
Sometimes.
You know? Right.
Okay, so guys, we're nearing the end of our time. We've got about 7 minutes. And so I'm going to just put out there, if you have a comment, a question, or anything out there, just put it in the Q&A. If Mark has addressed everything that you had hoped for and more, of course, it's enjoyable every time we get to sit down with him. So I just want to put that out there for you guys. If you want to put a comment, Mark, do you mind if we talk about some things we've got coming up as a company
Sure.
with our few minutes, and then we'll just see if anything comes up on the chat. Q&A. Sorry about that. But we do have some classes coming up. We're going to continue doing Broker Up on a quarterly basis. And so we hope that you'll come back, because we'll try to adjust our conversation based on what's going on currently.
What she's doing is she's leading into what I need to tell you, which is that we just got approved for some NAR designation
Did
courses,
really?
which she's going to be teaching. And so that's what she was trying to do, was segue into her spot on the thing. So we're going to just,
OMG.
so she got approved for NAR designation classes. So which ones?
We're starting with accredited buyer representative and military relocation professional. So those will be our first two, and then we're going to get into the seller's representative. And one thing I'm really excited about, for those of you who don't know Barry Arnold, he's our CIO. He and I are going to be working on something new this year, and that is Fair Housing Awareness Month, which is coming up in April, which I haven't, to put this in context, I haven't asked you about this yet, but we're probably going to do a special broker up for that.
That's okay.
So,
I'm going to be somewhere every day.
I said it on TV, so it's got to happen now.
So here's the deal as it relates to the NAR designation classes. That's a big deal. And why is it a big deal? If you are interested in any one of those three first designations that we're going to do, the reason that that's important is because we're able to offer them at a better price because we're in control than you can get in the marketplaces. So classes that are normally $250 to $300 will be considerably less because we're in control of the process and what the price is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's money that goes to NAR for each one of the designations, et cetera, and we have to charge that amount. And that's pretty much what we're going to do. And then you're able to get those designations inexpensively.
Well, and to your whole point,
and the knowledge, more important.
The knowledge is the most important.
Right.
Do you have to get the designation? Absolutely not. But we do want to give you the opportunity to have those designations or the knowledge from said designations. So let's just talk a little bit about the pricing on that. I just recently got one of those. I got the ABR designation. I know some other people have as well, and I paid between $300 and $400 for that, for a 2-day, 8-hour course. Some other people said something similar. Some people said closer to $500. We're offering the ABR designation for $100. You know what that does is it covers our cost.
Right.
It covers Atlanta Community's cost. That's it. If you want the designation, great. But where can you go for a 2-day class and spend $100 and get that kind of knowledge that's brought to you by the National Association of Realtors? So we do have one person that said, I'd love a few more designations. They're coming. So we just hope you'll check the calendar, because the first one's coming up in March, and you'll be able to get that done. So thank you. So excited about the NAR designations. They will be in-person classes. Yes. Eventually we may get to the point where we offer them online. We're going to start with in-person. So, and all of that.
You have to get in the car, open the door, get in the car, put your seatbelt on, close the door, put the key in the ignition,
Put some
press
gas
the button
in.
or whatever. Yeah. And drive somewhere, but it'll be worth your time.
It will be.
It'll definitely be worth your time.
It will be. And guys, like Mark said, you're not going to be able to get them at the cost that we're going to be able to offer them to you. So we're starting small, and we're going to continue to grow this particular part of Atlanta Community. So take advantage of it. Is that the only thing that we've got going on? Absolutely not. Our calendar, I was looking at it, it's full. So please keep going back to atcmonline.com. I know I post some stuff. Mark has been posting some stuff every week just to say, here's what's going on. Come take advantage of it. And again, if you're at the East Cobb office, for instance, you don't just have to look at East Cobb. You can go to Brookhaven. You can go to Alpharetta. Get out there and meet some people, because you don't even know who you're going to get to refer something to. Do we have the exact dates for March? It is March 6th and 7th, I believe. So I believe it's a Monday and a Tuesday, but if you go to atcmonline.com, you'll find that information out there. So
and another one, is it a one-time fee for the designation? Yes, but I think there's an annual fee if you keep the designation up. So again, the designation is important, but also equally as important as the knowledge you gain from the class.
And I would say the knowledge is more important, wouldn't you?
Yeah, because it stays with you forever.
All right. Well, I think, Mark, we're at the end of our time, and thank you for your comments. Great information, Mark and Michelle. I didn't really give much information. I just get to sit here with this guy. He's pretty awesome. So, and I love it every time I
Hey,
get to do it.
when I do Broker Up this weekend, when I send out the email, when I post it on Rocks, feel free to comment. I promise you, it's not a burden to me, because I know a lot of people say, I don't want to bother you. I know you got a lot of comments and stuff. You know what? I actually welcome the comments, and I don't know how I would get through 1,800 of them, but certainly I'm willing to try. So
Well,
even if it takes me a whole week, but you know,
love it.
we
Well,
appreciate you.
we do appreciate you. And as we sign off here, I do want to just give a shout out to our marketing team
Absolutely.
who makes the studio available to us and does the production. So if you guys
And
have a
does these
chance,
great logos
Yep.
for me, you know.
which they can help you with if you schedule time with them. Their email address is marketing@atlantacommunities.net. So thank you to everything y'all do to produce such great material. You make us look good, and we appreciate
If
y'all.
I could flip around the camera, I would show you Peter and Carolyn in here, because they've been running the board and doing all the stuff
Yeah.
and she's been cutting to the camera, which scares the crap out of me when I see myself big and live on the screen. But she's been going to the second camera, etc. And that's actually pretty cool.
It's awesome.
Normally when I shoot videos, I don't have a production team. Well, I do, but it's just this guy. So it's kind of cool to have
One-man band.
one-man band.
On
But now I
Saturday.
have lots of people. It's like it's like being in a star.
All right, y'all. Well, we're going to see you in next quarter for Broker Up to talk about this information. But if you will, just check the schedule. There's so much going on, and we can't wait to see you till, next time. So you guys have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
See you Saturday.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.